Tyler Grayson's blood ran cold the moment the world turned upside down. The ambulance lay inverted in the river, headlights flickering like dying stars against black water. He dangled from his safety harness, half submerged, lungs burning as icy water rose higher with every second. Beside him, the patient wheezed through an oxygen mask that kept sliding from his trembling face. Tyler shoved it back, his arms heavy, uniform dragging at him like lead weights. The man's eyelids fluttered, then shut again, his breath shallow and fragile. "Breathe," Tyler whispered, voice breaking as bubbles escaped his lips. "Just keep breathing." The irony stung. He was begging another man to inhale, while his own chest ached for air. Training screamed at him, "Cut yourself free, get out, save yourself first." But Tyler's hands refused to move from the mask. He wouldn't let this man die alone, not while he still had the strength to hold on. Through the fractured windshield, a faint red glow pulsed far above the surface. Rescue lights. Close, yet impossibly out of reach. The ambulance groaned as metal shifted, the sound sharp and final, like bones breaking under strain. His harness jerked, cinching tighter across his chest. The patient gasped once, twice, then went terrifyingly still. Tyler pressed harder on the mask, heart hammering, knowing the next sound could decide everything. The rush of rescuers breaking through, or the frame collapsing around them both. When survival comes down to a single decision, what would your heart tell you to do? Share your take in the comments, and make sure you subscribe for more powerful stories of everyday heroes. 12 hours earlier, Tyler Grayson had been complaining about the quiet stretch of their Tuesday night shift. He sat in the driver's seat of Ambulance 47, tapping a restless rhythm on the steering wheel. His partner, Josh, sat sideways in the passenger seat, riffling through their supply kit like a man looking for reasons to be annoyed. "Another overdose," Josh muttered, checking vials of Narcan before tossing them back. "Third one this week, under that same bridge." You'd think people would find a new spot to kill themselves. Tyler gave him a look, one Josh didn't bother meeting. The cynicism always grated on him. 15 years on the job between them, and still, Tyler couldn't see the calls as routine. Each one was a life dangling by a thread. Each one mattered. He thought about the birthday card tucked in his locker back at the station. A crayon-scribbled ambulance surrounded by red hearts. Emma's handwriting was shaky, her 8-year-old fingers gripping the pencil too tightly. "Promise you'll come home, Dad." She said it every morning since her mother died 3 years ago. And every day, Tyler gave the same answer, "I promise." The radio crackled to life, its metallic voice breaking through his thoughts. "Unit 47, respond to West River Bridge. Possible overdose victim, unconscious but breathing." "That's us," Josh said, finally sitting upright. Tyler started the engine, the ambulance rumbling to life beneath him. He flicked on the emergency lights, and the familiar wail cut through the quiet streets. As they pulled away, Tyler kept one hand steady on the wheel, the other unconsciously brushing against the photo of Emma taped to the dashboard. Her smile, missing front tooth, sun-bright eyes, steady at him in a way no training manual ever could. The city blurred past, neon flickers of storefronts, empty intersections. The glow of streetlights stretched into streaks of yellow. Tyler forced his voice into calmness. "Should be routine," he said, though the words felt hollow even as they left his mouth. Josh smirked. "Yeah, routine." He stretched the word out like a joke. But as they crested the hill towards the bridge, something broke the rhythm. Headlights appeared in their lane, Not the compact glow of a car, but the searing, elevated blaze of a semi-truck barreling towards them. Tyler's hand tightened around the wheel. There was no shoulder, no room, no time. His breath caught, not on training, not on instinct, but on Emma's voice, echoing as clear as if she were in the back seat. "Promise you'll come home, Dad?" And then the world exploded in white light and shattering metal. The impact had hit like a bomb. Now, the ambulance lay upside down, sinking deeper into the river, its frame groaning with each new rush of water. Tyler Grayson hung suspended in his harness, disoriented, blood seeping into the cold current from a gash on his forehead. The silence pressed in, broken only by creaks of metal and the rising glug of water filling the cabin. His first thought wasn't of himself. "Josh?" Tyler rasped, turning his head against the pull of the harness. His partner sat slumped in the passenger seat, a ribbon of blood trailing down from his temple. His chest rose faintly, unevenly, but he was alive. Relief hit Tyler like a jolt of oxygen, but it was short-lived. Josh wasn't waking up anytime soon. A sound pulled Tyler's attention sideways, a strangled wheeze. Their patient, still trapped to the gurney, thrashed weakly as his oxygen mask floated just beyond his reach. Tyler stretched against the jammed buckle, muscles burning, until his fingertips brushed the mask and pressed it back into place. "Easy, easy, I've got you," Tyler said, though his own lungs ached. The man's eyes flickered open, hazel, ringed with exhaustion but alive. A pulse at his wrist, weak but steady. Water swirled around Tyler's waist, pulling at his gear. The medical bag drifted by, just out of reach, useless now. Their advanced kits, intubation tools, medications, all of it gone. He had nothing but the oxygen tank still hissing faintly against the mask. He checked the gauge, less than a quarter full. 10 minutes, maybe 15. For one person. Split between two, neither would survive long enough for rescue. A groan escaped Josh as his head shifted slightly. His lips moved, barely audible through the water. Tyler leaned in, straining to hear. "Go," Josh whispered, voice raw, his eyes fluttering half open. "Cut free. Save yourself." Tyler's throat tightened. His partner, the man who'd been cynical about overdose calls, who called rescues routine, was telling him to leave the others behind. Survival instinct clawed at Tyler too, whispering the same thing, but he couldn't. Not with Emma's voice still echoing in his head. "Promise you'll come home, Dad?" Not with the patient staring back at him, terrified but trusting, as if Tyler alone could keep him tethered to life. "Not living," Tyler muttered, more to himself than to Josh. He pressed the mask tighter against the man's face, hands steady despite the icy water climbing towards his chest. Through the murky windshield, beams of light swept the water. Divers, rescuers. But the ambulance twisted frame blocked every door, every window. Tyler banged the side panel with his fist, shouting into the water until his throat burned. Bubbles escaped, mocking him. They couldn't hear, couldn't see. A memory surged, unbidden. Emma at breakfast, syrup dripping down her chin as she grinned at him across the table. "Daddy, will you read to me tonight?" she'd ask. He promised he would. He always promised. Tyler looked at the patient again. The man's lips were tinged blue now, his chest barely rising. But when Tyler adjusted the mask, the man's hand shot up and clutched his wrist with surprising strength. His eyes locked into Tyler's, pleading, trusting, alive. "Stay with me," Tyler urged. "Help is coming, just hold on." He didn't know if he was talking to the patient, to Josh, or to himself. The water reached his chin. Panic clawed at his throat, but he pushed it down. focusing on the steady squeeze of the patient's hand. Josh stared again, coughing weakly, eyes glassy. Tyler, don't! Tyler pressed his lips together, jaw set. He knew what Josh meant. Don't waste yourself. Don't throw away your chance. But in Tyler's mind, another voice was louder. Every life matters. Don't leave them behind. The oxygen gauge needle twitched lower. The frame of the ambulance groaned. A high-pitched screech like nails dragged over steel. Then came a violent jolt as part of the cabin gave away, sending a surge of water crashing over Tyler's head. He sputtered, yanking the mask tighter against the patient's face as the world blurred into bubbles and black. Tyler repositioned the oxygen mask, pressing it more firmly against the patient's face. The adjustment worked. The man's breathing immediately improved, becoming deeper and more regular. His eyes opened again, clearer this time, and he managed to focus on Tyler's face. "Thank you," the patient whispered, his voice barely audible through the mask. For a moment, Tyler felt a surge of hope. The patient was responsive, alert, fighting back from the edge. This was what he'd become a paramedic for. These moments when training and determination could pull someone back from the brink of death. He'd seen it hundreds of times before, but it never got old, never stopped feeling like a miracle. But then, reality crashed back down on him like a weight. He glanced at the oxygen gauge again, and his heart sank. The needle hovered just above empty, maybe 5 minutes of air left, probably less. The math was simple and brutal. There wasn't enough oxygen for both of them to survive until rescue arrived. The water had reached his shoulders now, and the confined space was making him feel claustrophobic in a way he'd never experienced before. His paramedic training had prepared him for almost every emergency scenario imaginable, but being trapped underwater in an upside-down ambulance wasn't covered in any textbook. He could hear the rescue teams working outside, their equipment clanging against the ambulance hull. They were close, so close he could sometimes make out muffled voices through the water and twisted metal, but close wasn't close enough. They needed more time, and the time was the only thing Tyler couldn't give them. The patient's grip on his head tightened. The man was fully conscious now, aware enough to understand their situation. Tyler could see the fear in his eyes, but also something else, a desperate gratitude that someone would stay with him, refusing to abandon him in his final moments. "What's your name?" Tyler asked, partly to keep the patient alert and partly because he needed to know if this was going to be the end, they shouldn't be strangers. "David," the man replied, his voice stronger now with the steady oxygen flow. "David Morrison." "Tyler Grayson," he replied. "I'm going to get you out of here, David." But even as he said the words, Tyler felt the awful weight of the choice he was facing. His safety harness was completely jammed. There was no way to free himself without the tools they didn't have. The water was still rising, now lapping at his neck. In a matter of minutes, he would be completely submerged. He could let go of the oxygen mask, try to position his head to catch the last few inches of airspace near what used to be the floor of the ambulance. He might buy himself a few extra minutes, maybe long enough for the rescue teams to break through. But David would die within 2 minutes without the oxygen, or he could keep the mask in place, ensuring David's survival but guaranteeing his own death. Tyler thought of Emma again, probably already asleep in her bed, trusting that her father would keep his promise to come home. He thought of the birthday party card in his locker, the crayon drawings, the careful handwriting that spelled out her love. She'd already lost her mother. How could he choose to leave her an orphan? But then he looked at David's face, really looked at him. This man had a story too, people who loved him, and dreams that hadn't been fulfilled. The circumstances that led to his overdose didn't change the fundamental value of his life. Tyler had become a paramedic because he believed every life was worth saving. He'd taken an oath to do no harm, to put his patient's need above his own comfort and safety. He'd never imagined it would come to this, a choice between his own life and that of a stranger. The water reached his chin. Victory and dread warned in his chest as he realized what he had to do. The water was at Tyler's neck now, each ripple lapping against his chin. He tilted his head back, desperate to keep his nose and mouth above the shrinking air pocket. But the river was winning. The ambulance continued to settle deeper into the muck of the riverbed, twisting at an angle that made every breath a losing battle. Beside him, David Morrison breathed steadily through the oxygen mask Tyler held pressed against his face. The gate showed empty now. The tank was running on it, but the last remnants of pressure. Sounds of life, not minutes. Tyler knew it, even if David didn't. From the corner of his vision, Tyler saw Josh slumped in the passenger seat. His partner's chest rose faintly, but unevenly, shallowly. Blood leaked from his temple, dark tendrils floating in the water like ink. For a moment, Tyler's hand wavered. Should he abandon the mask, try to rouse Josh, keep his oldest friend alive? But David's grip tightened around his wrist, grounding him. This man was conscious, dependent on Tyler, and if Tyler let go now, David would be gone in less than 2 minutes. Josh, at least, had a fighting chance until rescuers reached them. "Hold on, partner," Tyler whispered towards Josh, the words bubbling into the water. "They'll get you out." The sound of rescue divers reached him, muffled shouts, the piercing whine of cutting tools biting into twisted steel. Sparks lit up the dark water in ghostly flashes as they tried to carve an opening through the roof. Hope glimmered, but too faintly, too slow. The mask, David rasped, eyes wide with panic. "Save yourself." Tyler shook his head, water splashing into his ears. Not happening. He forced himself lower, dipping beneath the last inch of air, ensuring the mask sealed firmly over David's face. Cold water rushed past his lips and nose. He clamped down his breath. 30 seconds. His lungs burned. 45 seconds. Black dots sparkled at the edge of his vision. 1 minute. Every fiber of his body screamed at him to let go, to claw upward for air. But his hands, steady, stubborn hands, refused to release the mask. Through the blur, Tyler locked eyes with David. The man's expression was a kaleidoscope of emotions. Fear, gratitude, disbelief. Tears streamed down his cheeks, vanishing into the river. 1 minute, 15 seconds. Darkness tunneled around Tyler's side, his chest convulsed with a primal urge to inhale. Still, he held on. Still, he chose the patient. And then a jolt. The ambulance shuddered violently as metal peeled back overhead. A shaft of light staggered through the murk. Hands plunged in, strong and urgent. A diver grabbed Tyler's shoulder, trying to pull him free, but his harness held tight. Another pair of hands reached for Josh, securing a mask over his face and hauling his limp body upward. Relief surged through Tyler even as his own consciousness leapt. Josh was alive. They'd gotten him. His lungs betrayed him. A rush of river water filled his chest, and the world went black. When Tyler opened his eyes, he thought he was dreaming. He was lying on a riverbank, bright floodlights glaring down, people swarming in every direction. His chest heaved violently as rescuers pressed on it, forcing water out in great choking coughs. For one terrifying heartbeat, he thought he was gone, that he'd broken his promise to Emma, left her without a father. But then, but then, a thin, ragged gasp tore from his throat. Air, blessed, burning air. Come on, Tyler, a rescuer urged, recognition in his voice. Don't you quit on us now. Tyler blinked through the haze until he found David on a stretcher a few yards away. Still breathing, still alive. David caught his eye and mouthed two words, "Thank you." Relief crashed over Tyler harder than the river ever had. Against the odds, the patient had survived. Then, he turned his head and saw Josh, wrapped in blankets, a mask over his face, already loaded into another ambulance, conscious, weak but alive. Josh raised a trembling hand in a half-wave, his lips curling into the faintest grin. Tyler nearly sobbed with gratitude. They'd all made it. A rescuer knelt beside Tyler and pressed something into his palm. He looked down to see the oxygen mask, retrieved from the wreckage. His fingers still trembled as she closed around it. "Figured you'd want this back," the rescuer said softly. "Heard you wouldn't let go." Tyler stared at the mask, at the scuffed plastic that had nearly cost him his life. And in its reflection, he saw Emma's face. Her pancake syrup smile, her careful handwriting on the birthday card. Happy birthday to the best daddy ever. He had kept his promise, not just the one to his daughter, but the oath he'd sworn as a paramedic, to place the life of the patient above his own, even when the cost was everything. As they loaded him into the ambulance, Tyler let the exhaustion claim him. His last thought before unconscious wasn't of the river, or the mask, or even the rescue lights. It was of Emma's voice, warm and steady in his memory. "Promise you'll come home, Dad?" He had. 3 weeks later, Tyler sat in his living room, his cane leaning against the armrest, a patchwork of get well cards from fellow EMTs, firefighters, and even strangers scattered across the coffee table. Healing had been slow, each step reminding him of how close he'd come to never walking again. Doctors told him he'd cheated death by half a minute. 30 more seconds underwater and he would have been gone. Emma was curled beside him, tracing the scar that cut across his forehead. Her presence grounded him more than any painkiller ever could. She had spent nights at his sister's house while he was in the hospital, but this was their first day back together at home. "Does it hurt, Daddy?" she asked, her fingertip hovering gently over the scar. "A little," Tyler admitted, "but I kept my promise. I came home." Her eyes lit with relief and then pride. "My teacher said you're a hero. She read about you in the paper." Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Headlines had painted him as a selfless savior, a symbol of bravery, but Tyler knew better. It hadn't been about glory. It had been about one decision, another human life in his hands. A split second that demanded courage. The doorbell rang, breaking the moment. Emma scampered to answer it and returned holding a thick envelope. No return address, just his name written neatly across the front. Inside, Tyler found 2 letters. The first was from Natalie Morrison, the sister of the overdose patient. "You don't know me," it began, "but you saved my brother's life 3 weeks ago." Her words painted a picture of years spent watching David disappear into addiction. The heartbreak of failed interventions, the phone call she thought would be the end. Then she described what Tyler had done, how his sacrifice had given David not just breath, but belief. "David has been clean for 18 days, she wrote. Not because of ultimatums or programs, but because a stranger thought his life was still worth saving when he didn't. You just didn't pull him out of the river. You gave him back the will to live." The second letter, shorter and shakier, was from David himself. "Tyler, There are no words for what you did, but I promise you this. The life you saved won't be wasted. Every day I stay clean. Every person I help in the future, that's their legacy too. Thank you for seeing something in me when I couldn't see it myself. Tyler folded the letter carefully and slipped them into his wallet. Beside Emma's gray and colored birthday card, he kept it close, just like the promise he whispered to her every morning. I'll come home. Emma looked up. What did he say? Tyler wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his voice steady. They said thank you, and they reminded me what matters most, coming home to you. From outside, the faint wail of an ambulance siren rose, then faded into the distance. Tyler listened, knowing someone else's life was about to hinge on another ordinary person making an extraordinary choice. He glanced down at his daughter, smiled, and whispered more to himself than to her. Everyday heroes are all around us.